there it is. It took a while to arrive, longer than it should have, but I guess that doesn't make any difference to you. It just appeared on your screen. I'm confident that I have the indentations in the wood in the right place. So now I have my 11mm brad point drill bit to drill the holes for the studs for the bridge posts. What I'm going to do next is just put some masking tape around the drill bit so that it goes only as deep as it needs to into the wood, only as deep as the stud is tall. Sorry. Okay, so I got that 11mm brad point drill bit from overseas. I waited for it to arrive. I did a rough measurement, and that was my mistake, admittedly. I did a rough measurement of this, and I saw some discussion online about studs for bridges and for tailpieces in particular, that required an 11mm hole. Well, 11mm is a little more than I need for the tip of the stud, which is narrow, but there is no way I am getting those little ridges into an 11mm hole. It's not quite right. And that's frustrating. Well, I mean, at least the hole's too small. If it was too big, I would be in a whole world of trouble. This at least can be fixed. As best I can tell, the measurement of the hole diameter, including those ridges, is a little bit over 11.5 millimeters. I think it's an imperial measure, because that comes to about, and get this, 29/64ths of an inch. That's a thing in imperial measuring. Seriously, America, your money is metric. Do everything else the way you do your money and make life easy for the rest of us. 29/60, I mean, is that even a real thing? Yes, it is a real thing. I've ordered a 29/64th of an inch brad point drill bit, but I don't want to wait for it to arrive, so I'll use that next time. What I've got here is some 240 grit sandpaper wrapped around a pencil, because it's only going to be very, very slightly bigger. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to sand, and I hope I get it more or less uniform all the way around. I should be able to. I'm going to sand the hole just ever so slightly larger than it is. Up and down, and I'm moving around the circumference on the inside as I go. Because 0.5 millimeter shouldn't take that much time to... Well, see, that's almost in. Yep. Come back soon. I'll have this. The 240 grit sandpaper was taking too long, so I swapped that for some 120 grit. And that seems to be working. I can see that I'm going to get there eventually. I'd like to get there a little bit faster. So this isn't too crazy. It should work. I have superglued some 120 grit sandpaper onto this pencil, and I'm going to stick this in my drill, my handheld electric drill, and give that a whiz. That should be okay. Yeah, let's find out. The important thing, of course, is not to take off too much. Okay, I can feel that if I hammer away at that, put a piece of wood on top of it, then use a rubber mallet on that, that will, I think, go in. Now I'll do the same thing with the next one. I never intended on making a video about this, but I never intended on making this mistake either. So here's a video about the fact that sometimes you need to redesign because of something silly that you've done. I don't know how... Have you ever made one of those mistakes and then looked at it and gone, how did I do that? That was just such a silly mistake. Too late. I've made the mistake. The pickup cavity is way too close to the bridge posts. Far too close. So the bridge would be sitting there-ish, overhanging the pickup, which is, you can't have that. And there was going to be a pickup ring holding the pickup in place. The corner of that pickup ring would have overlapped slightly the bridge stud, which you just can't do that. So this is no good. I initially stood here for a moment and thought, I can't come back from this. I will have to scrap this body and make a new one. I don't think that's the case anymore. So it just means I have to radically rethink what this guitar is going to look like, because I had a picture in my mind about how I was going to make this, and now that has to change. So there's a humbucker there. There's going to be a single coil there. I can't direct mount that because the cavity is too deep. I didn't route it with that in mind, and it's still too close to the bridge anyway. The bridge would overhang, and I don't want that. That's not good. Even though I would have solved the problem with the pickup ring. But I will just get around it another way. I'm going to route a larger cavity that will accommodate both pickups, and I will use a pick guard. I never envisaged this guitar with a pick guard, so I'll have to think about what that pick guard will look like, what shape it will be. I'll make a template. I will cut it out. This could still look good. I just have to get used to the fact that it's not going to look the way that I wanted it to. So let's get cracking on this. Step 1 is to make a rubbing. Well, step 1, I guess, was to think about how I'm going to solve this problem. Step 2, now that I have a plan, make a rubbing. It's because I'm going to design the pick guard onto a piece of paper around the existing features of the guitar. So I'll make a rubbing, then I can draw with confidence, knowing that I'm not, going off the edge of the guitar or over a hole for a control. And then I will glue the rubbing with the designed pick guard onto a piece of MDF, and then I can cut out the template in accordance with that which I have designed. It mightn't look like very much at this stage, but I know what each of those lines means. I know which one is the one that I'm actually going to use as the official outline. Trust me with this. I think I can see where this is going. At least somebody can. This is not the first template I made. The first one is over here. But because when you first make it and leave tool marks and whatnot on the edges, even though you'll sand it pretty well, it's not going to be quite as nice and smooth as the one that you make using this one as a template. So I made this one, which had some slightly rough spots just from tools, as I said, and then taped to it a second piece of MDF cut roughly to shape, and on my table router here I routed it to shape, and that's much smoother now, and that's a good shape. I'm pretty happy with this. Having set aside the template for the pick guard to focus on the body and making the changes that I need to there, I took the same template for the humbucker cavity that I used over here, made another one there, and then just using straight edges of wood and my bearing cutter on the router, my flush trim bit, I routed between the two cavities and then just went to town and made a big cavity. And that leaves me options when it comes to pickups. I could put 2 humbuckers in, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put in, well, at this stage anyway, I plan on putting a humbucker and a single coil in, because that would give you a bit more versatility, I think. It's nice to have access to the more mellow sound of a single coil. Right. So the body is now completely shaped. It just needs to be sanded before I stain it. But before I stain it, I think it would be prudent to make the pick guard, because then I can try it on for size without, well, not for size, the size should be fine, but I can try it on anyway without worrying about interfering with the stain. So that's what I'll do. I guess that means I'll have to make some holes in it for the pickups. So I'll continue this video series once I know what those dimensions should be. I'm making a template for the humbucking pickup to go into the pick guard, and it generally doesn't pay when you don't need to. It generally doesn't pay to take precise measurements from the pickup and then draw those measurements onto what you want to cut, or well, not just pickups, anything really. I mean, do that if you have to, and sometimes you may have to. But what I like to do is to build the template around the object that I'm making the template for. That's the way I do it when I'm making a neck pocket. I'll build, well, I often anyway, build a template around the end of the neck, around the heel, and that's what I'm doing here. I've made a template that very snugly fits the cover for the pickup, which is as large as it needs to be, exactly as large as it needs to be, and it fits in snugly, just touching the sides but not too tightly, so that it can be removed easily. And now that is where I need to make the hole. Now these bits of wood on either side don't go all the way to the edge. That's okay, because that's a 1/4 inch bit, so that will leave a rounded corner there anyway. It doesn't have to be an exact 90-degree sharp angle. So now I'll just drill the material out over there on the drill press and bring it back here and route it nice and smooth, and I should be in business. And I think we're about done. You may have noticed that I've just used some small nails, some panel pins to put these pieces of wood on. They may be kind of a lazy solution, but they're small light pieces of wood. The panel pins will certainly hold them down, or have held them down well enough. I would be less inclined to do that on a guitar, unless of course I was attaching a template to the top of a body which was then going to be covered in the top, in which case some little pinholes wouldn't be too bad. But generally I don't do it this way. But that looks quite good, quite well shaped. So let's yank these panel pins out and get a good look and see if that pickup cover fits it properly. Perfect. Does it move in there? You can't, I mean, I can feel that it's ever so slightly moving, but certainly not noticeably. That's great. There's a lot going on in the Monster Guitars workshop just now. The neck through Telecaster is pretty much done. It's strung up. I'm just doing some final tweaks. It'll be ready soon. You may have seen that already. You may have. I've got other projects over yonder. It's busy in here, which is how I like it. I finished the template for the pick guard. I was going to just have a single coil there, but I've decided to go for a humbucker. I can do that. I might make another template and put a single coil in for some future models, but this is the way this one's going to go. Next, I will sand the body and I will grain fill that off camera. It's a bit boring, but the staining I am looking forward to. Stay tuned.